When some people think about Arknights alters, many people might think about the new releases like Texas the Virtuosa or Swire the Elegant Wit. However, there is one character that arguably kind of brought this idea to light, the character that really started all of this in the first place. On the 11th of January 2020, with the release of Mia. Now, technically, she was not a new character, but the release of her was the first few of operators that had any sort of alternate version. When I first started playing the game and I actually saw this, I was actually very excited to get this version of Mia. Not only did she have different skills, but her art was different, even her class was different. Even though I did miss the original lore around this because I don't play the Arknights story, I was still very excited. Straight away I tried to search up how to get her. Apparently you needed an E2 caster Amiya for stage J282 in the story. This was doable. Even though at the time I probably didn't want to E2 her, I had to do it. So I played the stage, and after the stage was done, I unlocked her, finally being able to play with this character. Yeah, actually, I had to actually search up a guide because I kept losing and I didn't know how to actually do it. And technically speaking, I still haven't actually freestarred the stage to this day, but it was actually time to actually play with Mia. I brought her pretty much into every stage I played after that. I think I even set her as like my lobby operator as well. Well, actually, I only played with her for like 3 games and then got bored, so, you know. Now, it would actually take a very long time till we actually saw the next alternate character in the game, but on February 5th, 2021, we finally got another alter. Now, with the release of the Who Is Real event, we actually had the release of one of my favourite characters, Dusk. Dusk at the time came on the Hidden Moon banner, also alongside 6-star Saga and 5-star Mr. Nothing. Even though I do actually love the characters on this banner, the event also came with a free character, and this was actually Lava the Purgatory. This time it wasn't just another class for the original character, but a completely separate character. Lava the Purgatory was technically the first real alter in the game, and even though she faded away to obscurity these days, she was still very different from future alters. She was not only a caster like her original version, but also even shared the same archetype. This was quite a bit different compared to the likes of Fiala or Gavio the Invincible, who now play completely different from their original versions. This version of Lava, as a whole, looked like a pretty cool character to be fair, and if you were a fan of the original character, you probably did like this. Now, one of the common problems actually came with alters was that some people felt they were easy cash grabs, easy way to get money from other players to spend money on certain characters. Even though I do not agree with this entirely, mainly because if a character looks cool and it's fun to play, at least for me, that's really all that matters, to be honest. But thankfully for Lava, this problem was not the case. She was a free event operator after all, but the next character we got after that, yeah, it was a little bit different. On April 15th, 2021, we had the event A Walk in the Dust release. This came with a new character, Passenger. Passenger is very cool and you should build him. Oh, and also Skadi the Corrupting Heart released 3 months after Lava in the Undertides event. Not only was this the first time we got a 6-star alter, but she was also limited. Now I think when you look back at Skadi now, not only is she pretty much used all the time, but she is a unit that a lot of people really do like. I mean, even her skin was the 2nd highest selling skin since the release of the game. If you also liked alters that were unique like I did, she was actually heavily different compared to the original version. The new version was a support who buffed the team, healed the team, and this time, she didn't have any pants. But after this, they would follow the cycle again for another limited 6-star alter. However, this time round, some people weren't quite happy. Now, after another 3 months came, the brand new Dos Souls holiday event came out in CN. Now, I actually first started playing the game when this actually came out. Not only was the greatest character Tequila released in this time, which, I mean, now has been replaced by 2 other blonde operators, but the Holiday Stars banner was released, and even though I was completely unaware of the drama this actually had, I thought this was actually like really awesome. I mean, I didn't even know what a limited character was, or the fact that Chen had a previous version, but Chen was really cool. I love her playstyle, she was strong, her art was amazing. However, with Chen's release, there was a couple of problems that actually arose. Some people thought she was so strong that you basically had to pull for her. Heck, there was literally even a thread just talking about how you don't have to feel pressured to pull in this banner, and this is basically a blatant cash grab attempt by Arknights. Of course, her original character being relatively popular at the time, and the new character just being mega busted, and this was almost a guaranteed way to at least make some people spend money. I mean, also the reputation around summer events for gacha games isn't the best either, with the majority of gacha games at least making a lot of money from summer events. It's actually rather funny though, because after reviewing accounts when I first started making Arknights content, a lot of people wouldn't have Chen Alter's E2 art equipped. Some people simply didn't like the design, which is fair to be honest, while some people straight up did not like summer skins. But this really does make you think if people were simply frustrated at limited characters as a whole, especially with such a powerful one releasing, and then people just maybe felt inclined to make an argument that Chen was an easy cash grab due to this. Heck, like I mentioned before, maybe some people just don't like summer skins. I would actually love to hear your opinion down below. Now, the one thing I also haven't mentioned in this video is of course the arguments that the likes of Viola, which released semi-recently, did not need a new version because of how good her original version was. I mean, people still generally use the caster version of Viola to this day, and with the module system that we have in the game for a long time now, any older characters could improve theoretically. I mean, of course, regardless, creating a new version of a character canon sometimes does make them considerably more usable. I in fact really do love this because when it's actually done correctly, for especially lower rarity characters that maybe don't quite have the kit or maybe don't quite have the role to be a great unit, a new version of that unit can actually provide them with a new lifeline and actually make them usable. I mean, literally just take a look at Yato. Yato is literally a 2-star unit that you'd realistically not use unless you hate yourself, and then she just went on to be such a good character with a new version that she's debatably one of the better units in the game. Now, I actually think this is probably a big frustration that people have with actual alters in general, is when they're actually given to units that are pretty good already. I mean, it almost feels like there's a plethora of older characters and weaker units that could use an alter more, and this also aligns with the fact that some people's favourite characters in the game aren't the strongest ones, sometimes they are the weakest ones, so getting a new version can make them more appreciated by the Arknights community. So moving past the summer event, about 3 months had passed and the next event we got was the Nerl Light event. This came with a new banner and a new character, Nerl Radiant Knight. Now, with the 4th altar in the game and the 3rd limited one, the idea of altars were a lot more common now, and this was generally going to become a more regular occurrence into the game, with the likes of Cruise the King Glint coming out only 2 months after, followed by the limited Spectre View Unchained 4 months later. Generally the reception around Spectre seemed to be pretty good, and a lot of people did seem to like her, but some people did expect her to be stronger than she actually was on release, due to the expectation that a limited character had at the time. Some people just thought that limited characters had to be really powerful, since the previous ones were so strong. I'm actually unsure how people feel about Spectre these days in terms of power, but it's actually an interesting argument about limited units. Do all limited units have to be powerful? Probably not. Funnily enough, I actually preferred Irene when this banner came out and instead got a couple Spectres. I don't know if it's just me, but I do tend to prefer non-limited characters on these type of banners a lot of the time. Soon after this, we would see 2 new 5-star characters release, and this would be followed up by a massive banner for the Ideal City event. This would actually come with Posey and limited 6-star Gavio the Invincible. Now I actually remember this probably better than anyone else, to be honest, because I got shafted very hard on this banner. I think it took me about 250 pulls just to get one Gavio, and I actually don't even use it now, so it's kind of sad in that sense. But design wise, damn. She actually was really cool, and it seemed that many people agreed from what I've seen. If you compare this to how Chen was actually received originally, this was definitely a massive improvement. Now listen, we could sit here and talk about every single altar that came into the game, but for the sake of video length, I want to very quickly talk about what I consider to be the 3 biggest releases. Now 2 of these are very important releases, which were actually in Texas for Virtuosa and Kirin R Yato. Now I'm very confident I don't have to tell you this, but they were very powerful in release, and these 2 were actually a massive deal in the Arknights community. Not only was Kirin R Yato a collab unit, which was a massive deal in its own right, but these 2 being compared like crazy. Which one was better, Texas or Yato? Why you should not skip the Monster Hunter collab? Now when you really take a look at this, Texas released on May for global, and Yato released in September. That is literally around 3 months between each other, which is not a very long time. And the most important part to know here was the Chongyue banner was literally in between this. I mean, saving during this period was insanely tough, and I remember making videos on it, and it's probably the biggest positive in actually playing on global Arknights. Oh, and did I mention as well that Reed Alter was also in between this as well. Now first of all, Texas was a big deal for a few reasons. I mean, Texas has been a favourite of a lot of people since the start of Arknights. She was also, like I mentioned before, a very powerful unit, and finally, just a very visually stunning unit. I think it's fair to say that many people did not skip on this banner. Now Yato was very much in the same boat, even though I'm not sure what the community thought of her actual original character. She was fantastic, she looked amazing, she was a very powerful unit, and skipping her was much more difficult since most people were a lot more wary of the previous Rainbow Six Siege collab, potentially not coming back at the time. Now I think one of the core reasons also that these 2 were popular was because of the role they filled. I mean, generally these 2 fast redeploy units, they would literally shred anything, and you compare them to the likes of Phantom, even his Life 2D skin wasn't a good enough excuse to even try and use him. So overall, I was pretty happy with their release. I know some people complain about how strong they were, but at the end of the day, I have to use less brain cells, so it's at least a win for me. But next up, we have the characters that inspired me to make this video, the characters that I will just straight up say I do not like for a few reasons, and that is Viola and Swire. Now we have talked about whether Aya actually deserved an altar, but one of the core problems I at least have seen some people have was the fact that there were 2 altars on this banner. Now like we have talked about before, throughout the history of Arknights we have never had the banner like this. I mean technically we had Yarrow and Rathalos, but I mean does anyone actually use Rathalos still, let's be honest. But with 2 new altars on this banner, was it just a lazy way of making characters? Was it just another cash grab like Chen? I mean, no, not really, I don't think so personally. But this was actually a time where we saw a massive increase in altar operators. If I'm correct, after the release of Texas, we saw 5 banners with altars. This meant in around 7 months we saw 8 altars released including Texas, and that's also including free ones as well. I think my real problem was I wasn't a big fan of Aya's design, and I do think that many other characters could have used a new version, and the fact that Swire was a merchant actually frustrated me quite a bit. But to be honest, I don't really have a massive problem here or any real problem. I mean Swire is still a really good looking unit, and her E2 art is actually my favourite art, non-life 2D, behind maybe Fear Metas. And of course Aya, I mean some people like a design, some people don't like a design. If you like her, then I'm happy for you and I hope you enjoy her. But I do wonder how well she would actually be received if she wasn't such a strong unit originally. But anyway, let's be honest, it is undeniable that as time has gone on in Arknights history, the amount of altars has actually increased. So to now get a banner with both of them as the main operators being altars, anyone who has previously complained about them maybe being lazy, having too many in the game already, or saying the previous ones were too strong, they were obviously going to get riled up. But I suppose at the end of the day, when we look back at the first altar, Lava of the Purgatory, whether it was the right path or the wrong path for Arknights in the long term, let's just remember that the real problem is how power crept Tequila got in the end.